tributes and a question mark. What happened in that crash? Gemayel is buried as the Israelis move into Beirut. And film of the Afghans' fight against Russian occupation. Good evening. Princess Grace of Monaco is to be buried on Saturday. The funeral service will be in the Grand Monaco Cathedral, where 26 years ago she turned her back on Hollywood and married Prince Rainier. The princess died late last night after a car crash on Monday. It's still not known how that happened. The Queen has sent condolences, so has the Pope, so has President Reagan. Hollywood, too, has paid its tribute. Frank Sinatra said she was a gracious, wonderful woman, a princess from the moment she was born.
Princess Grace was a hugely popular figure in Monaco, and today the principality was stunned by her sudden death. From early morning, crowds began to gather outside the Royal Grimaldi Palace. A book of condolence was opened, and hundreds queued to sign it. Businesses closed out of respect for the princess. Everywhere, flags were at half-mast. And a rare stillness settled over a place normally bustling with wealthy visitors and holidaymakers. Shops were shut, cafes empty. Most of the people here learned the news this morning. No one had realized the princess had been so badly hurt. Her death came as a complete shock.
And when I woke up this morning in my hotel, the people told me that Grace Kelly had died.
What do you think of that?
I think it's terrible.
Everybody is very sad, you know. It's like I was not so shocked, like if it was my mother is dead, the same.
There remains now the mystery of what caused the princess's car to crash into a ravine on the coast road leading to Monaco. There have been suggestions that the Rover car was being driven by the princess's daughter, Stephanie. The official version is that the princess was driving and that the brakes failed. But any doubts are overshadowed for the moment by grief. Princess Grace's funeral will be held in a few days, and many of the people who have been paying tribute to her are expected here for the occasion. Tim Hewitt, ITN, Monaco.
As a Hollywood actress, she had the dignity and bearing of a princess long before she actually became one. Her beauty and her charm made her a natural favorite in the high circles of society in which she mixed. As Princess Grace, she never lost touch with the friends made during her Hollywood years. Nor did she ever lose that essential magic which, as Grace Kelly, captured so many filmgoers' hearts.
You're asking me to wait an hour to find out if I'm going to be a wife or a widow. I say it's too long to wait. I won't do it.
Amy.
I mean it. If you won't go with me now, I'll be on that train when it leaves here.
I've got to stay.
It was during the filming of To Catch a Thief that Grace Kelly first met Prince Rainier. They fell in love and married in a blaze of publicity in Monte Carlo. At 26, her short but brilliant career in films was over. They had 3 children. Princess Caroline, born almost 9 months to the day after the wedding, Prince Albert and Princess Stephanie. Throughout her years on the throne of Monaco, Princess Grace did considerable work for charities, helping the suffering, the needy and handicapped children. Amongst her subjects, friends and admirers throughout the world, she will be sorely missed.
The Israelis have moved in force into West Beirut following yesterday's assassination of Lebanon's president-elect, Mr. Bashir Gemayel. They said it's to prevent serious incidents. The Americans have urged them to show restraint, and Britain has said it doesn't believe the Israeli action will restore peace. It's the first time the Israelis have crossed into the city's Muslim sector since they invaded Lebanon 3 months ago. Mr. Gemayel, killed last night along with up to 60 of his supporters in a bomb explosion in Christian East Beirut, is being buried at his home village of Bithkaya.
The Israeli reaction to Jamal's assassination was swift and decisive. Their tanks were on the move before dawn. They swept in 3 columns into West Beirut, which the Israeli army had besieged and shelled for 2 months before the PLO got out. Several thousand of the PLO's old leftist allies, though, are still there, and there's been some bloody street fighting today. The leftists using bazookas and machine guns, the Israelis the cannons of their tanks and rocket-propelled grenades. By now, the Israelis claim they're in possession of all the major crossroads in the West and the headquarters used by Yasser Arafat for 12 years. Israel's military commands say the move was made to prevent fighting and secure peace. But Lebanon's Muslim leaders rejected that justification and have called on President Reagan to curb what they termed the Israeli invasion. And they voiced the fear that Israel is seeking to divide Lebanon into 2 parts, one Israeli, one Syrian. Derek Taylor, ITN, Tel Aviv.
And the Palestinian leader, Mr. Yasser Arafat, has accused Israel and the United States of Mr. Gemayel's assassination. He says it's a continuation of the Israeli plan against the Palestinian and Lebanese people. Mr. Arafat is in Rome, where he met the Pope, a meeting bitterly criticized by the Israelis.
For Yasser Arafat, Rome was the first stage of a diplomatic offensive to win support for the Palestinian homeland. Yet as he arrived, talk of a homeland and future peace was overshadowed by the news from Lebanon. When I spoke to him, he was quick to insist that President Jamal's assassination had nothing to do with the PLO. The death of the president would only help the Israelis to justify their occupation of Lebanon, he said. His first stop was the Italian Parliament, and a standing ovation from MPs of 98 countries here for the annual Congress of the Interparliamentary Union. He said he was the messenger of hope and peace, seeking only justice, as he put it, for his people. Mr. Arafat left to tumultuous applause. His next call was on Italy's aging president, Pertini. For Mr. Arafat, the kind of recognition he's always wanted. And further recognition came this afternoon when Pope John Paul received the PLO chairman at the Vatican for a private audience. David Smith, ITN, Rome.
Miners' leaders have rejected a pay offer of 6.5%. Their president, Mr. Arthur Scargill, called it an insult. But there'll be more talks with the coal board next week, despite threats of strike action if the offer isn't improved.
We're not prepared to accept the ridiculous offer that's been put forward by the National Coal Board. I believe it's an insult to every mine worker. It has been rejected by every member of the executive and negotiating team today, and we shall be making a full report to our NEC tomorrow.
What were you recommending tomorrow to the executive?
We shall be making a full report and making certain recommendations in the light of our negotiations today and meeting the board again next week.
Will they include preparations for a ballot?
They will include those preparations which are essential to win this claim.
Trains will be running on the TUC's Day of Action next Wednesday. The NUR has decided not to call out its members on British Rail in support of the health workers. But there'll be stoppages on the London Tyne and Merseyside undergrounds. And the National Union of Seamen say ferry services will also be hit. But the pubs will stay open. The National Association of Licensed House Managers has told its 18,000 members they can best support the Day of Action by providing refreshment for thirsty demonstrators. British Leyland made an overall loss of £143 million in the first 6 months of this year, but that is an improvement of more than £80 million on the same period last year. Sir Michael Edwards, who's leaving the company after 5 years as chairman, says the company is in good shape for his successor.
The company is in very good shape, and when I think back to what it was like 5 years ago, it was frankly unmanaged, it was chaotic. Today we have order and we have sensible disciplines. We have very good relationships with the workforce. The disputes have dropped by 8 times in this period. If you take the wage levels have gone up because of productivity bonuses. Since 1979, the takeaway money has gone up by 42%. The whole situation is different. So that although people have gone through tough times in BL, both the workforce and the company and the treasury of the company, if you like, are all doing much better.
Production of a new British aircraft has been saved by Saudi Arabian businessmen who put up £50 million for Learfan of Northern Ireland. The deal guarantees 560 existing jobs and the prospect of a further 2,000. The government and the CBI say that the average pay rose by about 7% in the year up to July. That's the lowest pay round for 5 years. But prices rose by around 9%, and it represents the biggest fall in living standards in 1 year since the war. The Financial Times Index fell to 576.2, that's down 9.5. The pound fell by 5 points against the dollar to close at 170.75. In Afghanistan, rebel tribesmen claim to have killed 20 Soviet soldiers after ambushing a supply convoy close to the Russian border. It's part of their fight against the 3-year-old Soviet occupation of their country. Jon Snow in London reports on film we've just received.
21 months after the Soviet invasion, rural villages in Afghanistan still provide the battleground. Only very occasionally is a film crew on hand to record the difficulty that the Russian and Afghan armies are having in withstanding the continuing attacks on their convoys. This time, even the Soviet troop-carrying helicopter escort was to fall victim to machine gun attack. The guerrillas claim 20 Soviets died in the attack and that 3 of their men were wounded. Those of us that have seen the rebels in action know that they are prepared to sustain much heavier losses and often do. After these men had pulled out, Afghan Air Force MiGs came in to mete out revenge on the village near which the ambush had been staged.
The whooping cough epidemic is still spreading fast. According to latest Department of Health figures, there were 3,232 new cases last week. That's nearly 1,000 up on the previous week and double the rate of increase over the past 6 weeks. Soccer. And European champions Aston Villa have played their first match in the European Cup behind closed doors. There were 200 officials, police and pressmen to see them beat Besiktas of Turkey 3-1. Their supporters were banned as a punishment after crowd trouble in the semi-final last year.
Despite their motto, Aston Villa could hardly have expected to begin their defence of the European Championship locked inside their own ground. But with police and security men for once outnumbering the public, Villa Park was a no-go area for even the loyalist fans. Just 70 guests from each club were allowed in, only then with official passes.
No passes, no admission.
It was a frustrating day for all Villa supporters, like ex-sports minister Dennis Howell.
That these wonderful supporters here from Aston Villa, who weren't responsible for the trouble, who behaved magnificently in the final, are now deprived and unable to see this match. It's an extremely sad day.
For most fans, any glimpse was better than nothing as the match got underway in almost total silence.
Brilliant, so dead, isn't it? Just like a reserve match, isn't it?
But even when you're locked out of your own ground, good news travels fast. Villa 2 up in just 10 minutes, and the fans were already starting to dance away their disappointment. Despite the eerie emptiness of Villa Park, the team was playing well. UEFA's punishment had cost the club nearly £70,000, but at least the champions were still in Europe. Jeremy Thompson, ITN Sport, outside Villa Park.
Other games this afternoon: in the Cup Winners' Cup, Coleraine 0-0, Spurs 3, and in the European Cup, Nentori Tirana of Albania 1, Linfield 0. And finally, the aircraft carrier Invincible is only 2 days from home after the Falklands War. She's now in the Bay of Biscay. This picture of her has just come in. On board, Prince Andrew, who piloted a helicopter during the conflict. Invincible arrives back at Portsmouth on Friday, and ITV will be there with a special live program starting at midday. Those headlines again. The funeral of Prince Grace of Monaco will take place in Monaco on Saturday. The tributes have been pouring in. The Israelis have gone into West Beirut after the assassination of Lebanon's President-elect Bashir Gemayel. That's it so far this evening. Next, of course, is news at 10, but from us, good evening.
Tonight at 7 o'clock, Miriam Stoppard meets a unique medical mystery.
Jason White has lived in hospital all his life. When he was born, he was unable to digest food normally. So doctors, suspecting a tumour of the gastrointestinal tract, removed his stomach completely. Now Jason has to depend on an intravenous drip to keep him alive.
They're vitamins you get, like when you eat a carrot, you know, you get some of them vitamins. I got them in here.
Where There's Life, tonight at 7 o'clock, here on ITV. And at 8 o'clock, Harry Secombe is joined by Una Stubbs, Ian Wallace, Jacques Lucet, and Wall Street Crash for an hour of Secombe with music. And now, on Yorkshire Television, Calendar.
The death of a Sheffield woman sparks off a medical safety campaign. A tribute to Princess Grace of Monaco from a shocked fan. And a threat from rugby league players to stop the action. All on Calendar tonight. Good evening. A Rotherham steelworker has launched a campaign to expose the dangers of the anaesthetic halothane following the death of his wife in May. An inquest decided that 39-year-old Hazel Tether of Warren Mount in Kimberworth died from liver failure due to halothane poisoning. But